We're down on the wine cellar of Restaurant Daniel here in New York City. I'm with head sommelier Raj Vaidya, and we're going to talk a little bit about their wine cellar and what they have to offer here. This is just a tremendous restaurant. It's the flagship restaurant of chef owner Daniel Boulud, in addition to a number of other of his restaurants through New York City and throughout the world. Just one of the finest restaurants you could ever dine in. We were here last evening, and I can just describe the meal strictly as just elegant and electric at the same time, between the service, between the aromatics of the food, the wine pairings. But let's get back to the cellar for a minute. Raj, tell me a little bit about the history of the cellar and what the emphasis is down here.
Absolutely. Well, we have a fairly large inventory and a large space for a restaurant in New York City. It's pretty atypical in that sense that we have this much space to store everything. It's about 20,000 bottles, an inventory of hovering between $1.5 to $2 million, changing throughout the course of the year. Big focus is obviously on France. We do have wines from around the world, but the biggest selection is in Burgundy, the Rhone Valley, and Bordeaux.
And this reflects, Chef Boulud's sort of heritage, so to speak, doesn't it?
Indeed, indeed. We are, after all, a French restaurant. Although I'm not French, I love French wine, and especially Burgundy, the Rhone Valley. These are regions where the wines tend to really shine along with the cuisine that Daniel cooks. And so the history of the cellar, it was put together originally by Chef Daniel and his first sommelier here at Restaurant Daniel, Jean-Luc Ledoux, when they moved into the space in 1999. And so even 11 years ago, the chef had a real keen sense of how much space he'd like to devote to wine and how important wine is in the program. We have about 2,500 wines on the wine list, so needless to say we have a lot of vertical selections from great producers in Burgundy like Roumier and Jean-François Coche and Lafon, Rouleau. We have one of the biggest offerings of Chateau Latour in the world. It comes primarily from the cellars of Chateau Latour, with very few bottlings that we picked up on auction and from other private cellars, but almost everything we buy directly from them, including older vintages, which is a rare opportunity. We have something like 25 vintages of Mouton Rothschild. We have over 70 bottlings of Chateau Yquem, between half bottles, magnums, and full bottles, and it's magnificent. I mean, our Yquem offering is huge.
Do you find that having half bottles is very attractive to the clientele?
Absolutely,
sometimes?
Absolutely. A lot of our clients do end up having a tasting menu in some way, shape, or form, and so having different wines throughout the course of the meal, but being able to drink bottles is a great boon, and that's where half bottles come in.
Yeah, I think it gives you an opportunity with perhaps if a full bottle were a little bit too expensive for somebody, they have an opportunity to taste a stellar first-class wine and be able to work it into their budget, so to speak.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. You spoke about the tasting menu, and we participated in that in a 3-course tasting menu last night, which was just outstanding. Clearly, the chef's dishes can be very complex with a whole variety of spices and sauces, and some predominant and sometimes very balanced. How do you, as the sommelier, go about the first few steps in trying to pair wines with the cuisine here?
Well, the cuisine is fairly complex. There's a lot of different elements on every plate. So certainly spice is a question, the richness of sauces, the types of protein, the acidity and character of the vegetables, which changes on an annual basis, and definitely we taste all of the dishes and we taste all of the elements as well on an ongoing basis with the chefs to really plan out how we pair. That having been said, I approach wine pairing, especially with such complex dishes, by thinking about structure. The structure of the wine and how it will accent or highlight different elements of the dish. The 3 or 4 most important aspects of the structure are the acidity levels of the wine. In general, with food like this, you want wines with elevated acidity levels to brighten up the flavors and highlight those sort of high-toned aromatic and flavor profiles in the dishes. In addition, you have to think about sugar. Certain very rich dishes can take wines that have a bit of sweetness to them, be it a lot of residual sugar, like something from Germany, or just a richness of a young vintage from the Rhone or Châteauneuf du Pape or Bordeaux. And then the other question, of course, is the general mouthfeel. If you have a dish like that has a risotto or a very rich grain, then you can have a wine that has a little elevated level of tannin. Alternatively, you can pair champagne with it to give that extra textural character. You want all elements of the mouthfeel, be it acid, sugar, tannin, and then of course alcohol as well. In general, we want low alcohol wines that highlight the characteristics of the vineyard and where it comes from. These all interplay very closely with the cuisine.
Do all the characters that you just described in a wine, deserve equal balance, whether it be red or a white, or would you say there are one or two facets of the wine that really should sort of take predominance when you start looking at pairing strategies?
Well, when it comes to pairing, in the end, what I want is for all the guests to drink great wine. And every great wine has one characteristic thing about it that gives it its identity and its character, be it the acidity or the tannic structure or the minerality. And it's very important for us to work with the chefs and tune the dishes perfectly so that they highlight both the best things about the food and the best things about any individual.
We're here at Daniel's Restaurant, the flagship restaurant in New York City. I'm sure they'd love to see you here, and I'm sure that we'll be here to visit with you once again.
We look forward to it. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, and cheers.